Hello, and welcome back to another episode of That Spiritual Girl Next Door. This is a different type of episode in that I got to sit down with an old friend, Allie Morgan, who is associated with her writing and Instagram at Seeds Leaven. Her bio there says she's an author, griever, beauty seeker, living and writing the both and of life and faith. But of course, she's so much more. Morgan and I used to sit in the Zeta House at the University of Georgia talking about life's big questions, the kind of conversations college friends have when you're all trying to figure out who you're supposed to become. That was over 17 years ago. We lost touch the way people do, but recently I've watched Morgan's evolution unfold from a distance as she shared her journey online. To start off her story, Morgan says she spent years in a sweater that didn't fit. Not literally, though that's how she describes it. She means the life she was handed, the predictable Southern family, the approved marriage, the Christian cultural box where everything has its place and every question had an answer. And then her twin daughters started having seizures. For nearly 8 years, Morgan became someone she never planned to be, a 24/7 medical caregiver to Bailey Grace and Allie, twin girls with a genetic mutation so rare they were among only 7 diagnosed in the world. The doctors couldn't predict how long the girls would live. The mutation was new and the research was just too sparse. So Morgan did what mothers do. She showed up every single day, learning their language of seizures and feeding tubes, of small victories and an impossible tenderness. She calls those years the greatest privilege of her life, and she means it. Even as the sleep deprivation mounted, even as her own body carried the weight of round-the-clock care, she wouldn't trade anything about that time. The way her daughters taught her about presence and love were priceless. During those years, she and her husband also adopted a son from China, a boy with cerebral palsy who expanded her capacity for love in ways that continue to unfold. Bailey Grace died in July 2019. Allie followed in December 2020. They were 6 and 7 years old. And Morgan, for the first time in her life, asked herself, "Who am I?" The answer did not come easily. Her marriage ended. The custody arrangement she hoped for her son didn't happen. The church that once felt like home started to feel like a costume she could no longer wear. She stopped showing up to spaces where she had to perform a version of herself that no longer existed. What emerged instead was something truer, messier, and ultimately more alive. A faith big enough to hold mystery, a body learning what safety actually feels like, and a voice unafraid to say, "I don't know," alongside, "This is what I've found." Today, Morgan writes at Seeds Leaven on Substack and is working on a book called Faith is Doubt. She's training to become a trauma-informed embodiment coach. She speaks openly about grief, intimacy, nervous system healing, and what it means to meet God outside the scripts we've been given. This conversation isn't about having answers. It's about what happens when you finally take off the sweater, when you stop trying to make your life fit someone else's pattern and start living from the inside out. It's ultimately a story of authenticity and hope, and I'm honored Morgan trusted me to walk back into her life for this conversation. We talk about forest bathing and psychic mediums, about holding your children as they die, and learning to dance under the moon, about the difference between authenticity and performance, and why the most radical thing Morgan has done might simply be choosing to feel good in her own skin. Now, I need to have a content note here. This episode includes candid discussion of child loss, medical trauma, divorce, and faith deconstruction. So please listen with care. That said, hope this opens your mind and your heart. And without further ado, on to the show. I have to laugh at this whole situation. Like, it's so funny to know somebody than not know them at all. Like, that's how I feel. Like, we knew each other, and then we're both such different people than when we were in college.
Right.
And isn't it kind of bizarre?
I don't know about you. I don't remember. My memory is really bizarre. And I don't know if it's always been that way or if that's what grief, kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a lot about college
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, I do and I don't. But the person that I was, I did not know who I was in college. That's the absolute best way to word it.
Yeah.
And maybe nobody does.
Yeah. I mean, how? How can you? Unless you've been through maybe something that would almost be unfortunate, like
Right.
early in your life. I think that might be the only, I don't know. Yeah.
Right. No,
I
I
certainly
don't,
didn't.
and I often wonder because I felt so a lot of my life felt like a sweater that I was trying to make fit
Mm,
that didn't fit, but I was still putting it on and just
yeah.
awkwardly walking around in it, like, "I'm in the sweater."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and once I finally got that dang sweater off, now it's so easy to walk in rooms and my body feel like and I wonder, I don't know who experiences that and who doesn't. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a common experience or not, but for me, that was most of my life. Most of my life was walking around, putting on sweaters that people handed me that, uh, first of all, I didn't even like the sweaters. Second of all, they just didn't fit. It
Yeah,
wasn't, it wasn't that they were bad sweaters. They
yeah,
just
yeah, they just didn't fit
weren't for
you.
me.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's so funny because I feel like I'm not perfect at that. I think depending on the situation and the people, sometimes you gotta put on the sweater.
Mhm.
Because 'cause I'm thinking about sometimes it just they're like, "Okay, this is something if I'm gonna go walk in to volunteer in the classroom," I don't know, just something where, like, you gotta be there and you're gonna do this. Sometimes I feel the sweater
Right.
because but maybe that's not me leaning into who I truly am enough to be trusting to instead of the sweater, just be like, "I'm here. This is me." I don't know, it's hard sometimes.
I have I am learning the art of figuring out what's authentic,
Mhm.
what's inauthentic, and what is just having wisdom to know what's appropriate and what's not. Because
Yeah.
my relationship with my family of origin got really tough during my separation and divorce, and uh, my growth and change has been very uncomfortable for them, I would say, and I
Okay.
think they would say that. And I really love my family. I
Mhm.
think that they are well intentioned, and I think that a lot of my healing in that has been th they don't mean harm. I think when people mean harm, there's a very big difference in meaning
Mhm.
harm and just not having context for who a person is or not having the capacity to kinda understand growth, and I've been able to have a lot more compassion on that and recognize that I want relationship with them, and in order to do that, it's not that I have to show up inauthentically, but I also don't have to show up, like, screaming, "Here I am."
Right.
Like, that's also I think that's a part of just settling into your
Yeah.
identity
So
as a
talking about
person.
college, I feel like that was more me that was off-putting, where it's like I am want to be myself that I want
Mm,
everybody to hear my opinions and know that this is who I am, and instead that's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, okay," we don't all need to know all the intimate details of your opinions, and that wisdom to pump the brakes a little bit, to just be able to live in yourself without having to let everybody know who you are
right.
is a balance.
I
All
okay,
right, let's take a huge step back.
perfect.
And I want to hear how do you even tell your origin story?
Hmm.
Because I mean, that's a lot there.
Yeah, I struggle when somebody asks me to write a bio, it is my
Hmm.
absolute worst nightmare and stopped me from turning in this isn't dramatic, this is real.
Yeah.
Stopped me from turning in applications for certain speaking opportunities or writing opportunities because I didn't know how to write my bio. And I even more so in this new season that I find myself in where my I wanted to have my son living I moved, wanted to have my son living with me in Georgia, and that was his desire, and that was denied, by the system, and so, that being said, that is a story I tread very lightly
Hmm.
on, verbally especially,
Yeah.
but I will say that that in itself is my newest, "Holy shit, this is my life looks drastically different
Hmm.
than what I anticipated, and how do I even write about that?"
Right.
In a bio, like, "I have joint custody of my son who lives with me during the summers." Like,
You're right.
what do
This
you
is
you know
instead it used to be I live with my son. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
You
I have an
know
adopted son, and this
right,
is
it
part of
was
my story.
very so much of my roles were so crystal clear most of my life, and I feel like all those roles were stripped away in a way that I feel was God in his kindness telling me as loud as he knew how, "You matter.
Mm.
You are important. No, I want you to know that you matter." And a lot of that journey felt very, very selfish until I got further in and I realized that being ourselves is honestly the most selfless thing that I think we can do because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to show up as yourself. And so the way that I now am able to kind of rewind and summarize as best as I know how is that I grew up in a very predictable Southern family. I grew up in a family with the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence. Things were not perfect, but they were very typical. And I was really sheltered from a lot of lives that were different than mine. And when we went to college, uh, I really jumped into the same. And
Mhm.
that meant that subconsciously, whether I knew it or not, I was going to marry somebody who, on paper, my parents and my family and everyone around me approved. None of this was conscious. Like,
Right.
none of this was something that I was thinking as I was doing it.
Mhm. You were
Um,
being authentic at that time
I was being
in terms of
authentic.
that all that you knew how to be authentic at
I
that.
was exactly. And so, um, when I look back now, and this is not something he doesn't know, obviously, but when I look back now, I did not know myself enough to pick a life partner in that season.
Mhm.
I didn't. And there are a lot more layers to our divorce. And I haven't, this is actually the first time I've spoken publicly about our divorce at all. So just know that. But there are a lot more layers to our divorce. And some of those layers I actively choose to not share
Sure.
because they don't matter. If
Mhm.
that makes sense, they matter a lot to me as an
Mm.
individual, but in the big picture of my story, I don't think it benefits or serves people for me to put a focus on that. And so the layer I do like to be open with is that we were really incompatible. And I think that people don't like to hear that, particularly in Southern.
Mm.
It can like we stay together, covenantal vows, kind of dynamics. And when I say that, it's funny because I think that everyone's like, well, no, marriage is hard work. And, everybody finds out things about each other and you grow and you learn. All of that is absolutely true. I think there's a big difference in that and just genuinely being very incompatible.
Mhm.
And we are very incompatible. And that is a layer of it that now I speak about just really authentically because I think people feel some shame in getting to a space where you've done all the therapies. You've really tried so hard and both you're just trying so hard, and you're gonna spend the rest of your life trying, trying, trying. Um,
Mhm.
Again, way more layers than
Sure.
just that there,
Yeah.
but that is a layer, and I say that to say we got married and very within the first year, we're pregnant with our twin girls, and our twin girls, this could be a podcast episode in itself, but essentially, um, healthy pregnancy, healthy birth, got to be about 3 months old, and they started having infantile spasms. Nobody in the medical community believed me, including
Mm.
the person in my own home, that that's what was going on. I knew that something was wrong, and there's a lot of denial involved there. I think, my ex was a part of the residency program at the time in the pediatric, you
Mhm.
know, residency program, and
Yeah.
so I think that even the people seeing us had an emotional attachment enough to where everyone just kinda wanted to think, "No, surely not.
Okay.
Surely that's not what's happening."
Surely everything's
And
okay. Yeah.
exactly, and if you fast forward to them being, about 2.5 years old is when we got their official diagnosis of HEC-W2. At the time, there were 2 of 7 in the world. It's, what they call de novo mutation, and so it wasn't hereditary. My ex didn't carry it. I didn't carry it. It just happened at random, and, that started our journey of not knowing what was going on with them, but their medical needs progressively getting, more and more significant, and I spent almost 8 years. Bailey Grace and Allie died. Bailey Grace died in July 13th of 2000. 19, and then Allie died December 16th of 2020, and they were 6 and 7 years old, and I spent upwards 8 years of, their lives truly as a medical caregiver 24/7,
Mhm.
and it was the greatest privilege of my life. It really was. It was the greatest privilege of my life. It also took a toll on who I was and my body and all the parts of me, that were separate from them. It just took a toll on me as it would, and the trauma and the stress from those years and lack of sleep and, um, really neglecting everything other than my spiritual health, which is a conversation we could have,
Mhm.
just really took a toll on me. And so, in the midst of that, we had adopted our son from China at 7 years old. And there was just so much going on under our roof that was beautiful and
Mm.
hard and also really, really damaging to the body.
Yeah.
And we lived in that dynamic. And after the girls died, that was really my opportunity to say, who am I? Who
Mhm.
am I? Because didn't do it in college, didn't do it before I got
Mhm.
married, got pregnant very quickly into marriage, and then we were in a crisis 24/7, all day, every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And that, after December 2020, starting 2021, that was really the first time I ever took a step back and thought, like, who am I?
Mhm.
What what do I want? And I think that what happens when you hold your kids as they die is that everything else is stripped so bare, like so bare.
Mhm.
And you stop giving a shit about anything else. Like
Sure.
everything matters immensely and nothing matters
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
And I it was almost like I tell people all the time, their death gave me this clarity of self and that it said, okay, who are you? That matters. It matters to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, do you want me to, want me to keep going with it or
Yeah.
you have,
This
okay,
I think this is I mean, because this is the type of grief that people can't even imagine, and the type of, what you've been through, of course, is gonna put you in a place that you've never seen before, and now you've gotta pick up the pieces and figure out, "Now wait, if I was Morgan caregiver, I was Morgan wife, I was the Morgan the mother, like, who am I now?" I mean, I don't
right.
even know how you pick up the pieces on that.
Yeah. And my answers to myself for probably a decade of my life had been God tells you who you are, the church tells you who you are, the Bible tells you who you are,
Mhm.
the people in your life that abide by those theologies tell you who you are. That is who you are. And I had an experience with God so Allie died second, and the only prayer I had was that her death would be easier than Bailey Grace's.
Mm,
Like, I was just like, I just want this to be easier than Bailey Grace's. She ended up meaning like a Guinness Book of World Records,
mm.
19 days without fluids, almost 8 years old, 20 pounds. No, that's not almost 8 years old, 20
I mean,
pounds.
how
Like, if
can
you,
you not have doubts with God?
I don't,
You know?
well, here's the irony.
Mhm.
The irony for me is that the one night that I truly had severe, severe doubt was 2 or 3 nights before she actually died. She was really, and again, any trigger I hate the phrase trigger, but, like, trigger warning for anyone who has experienced death because if you know, like, she
Yeah.
was truly not she was dead and alive at the same time. She really just had a heart that wouldn't stop beating. So she's just laying in this bed, and you're not, like, sleeping, but your body physically has to rest at times, so
Mm.
it's just kind of this, like, twilight zone. And she had been comfortable, like medicated comfortably for a couple days, and we were really just waiting on her heart to stop. And suddenly she wakes up, and as a mom, like, it's very obvious she's in pain. Like, this
Mhm.
isn't like she is in pain, and it's horrific to watch. It is. She is a skeleton. She's the most vulnerable I've ever seen a human being in my life. And it's my own kid, and it's the second time. And there are people from our church that are outside singing worship songs, like in this little circle. And my ex starts singing a song about God being good as he's trying to calm her down. And I'm on the phone with the hospice nurse trying to figure out what medication we put into her feeding tube. And I look around the scene and I thought, okay, I think God is real. And I think he's a psycho. Like, this is
Mhm.
abusive. This is no there and then makes this moment right. Like, this whole, "Well, it'll be better in heaven and we'll be" no. This moment is not okay,
Mhm.
and a God that is okay with this moment is not a God I am okay with.
Yeah.
And so I just said, "Stop singing that," to my ex, and, we finally got her calmed down, and I said to God, I was like, I think you're a psycho." And I even, because I'm such a, like, I'm always in my head, I like had a daydream. I was like, I bet I don't even speak at the funeral. I bet that I am done with it. I may not even step
Mhm.
into church
Mhm.
again. And uh, I kind of rested for a couple of hours and then got up and the sun was rising. And all I wanted to do was just sit in silence with God, because it was like, where else? Where the hell else do I go?
Mhm.
Where do I go at this point? There
Mhm.
is nowhere else to go. And in that moment, not audibly, but very clearly, I felt God speak to me. My hold is on you. Your hold isn't on me. And I also felt a shift in my own journey of faith. And I knew in that moment, this is never going to be the same for me. This is never going to be the same for me. Not in a good way, not in a bad way.
Mhm.
This is the shift. And she died, and I just had to reconcile with myself that if I were going to keep my version of faith, if I were gonna, I couldn't pretend I didn't experience what I had experienced. I
Yeah.
couldn't pretend. So it wasn't a lot of people in the church. So I stopped going to church, and
Mhm.
a lot of people in my life were super confused at that, and I didn't know how to explain to this is not about, this has nothing to do with God. If anything, this is protecting my understanding of a creator. This is protecting, I'm not mad at God. I'm not mad at God. I just think all of this, the veil has been taken off of my eyes, and this system and the way it all plays out may be right for some people, but it is not right for me anymore. And I started finding God in different spaces and realizing, okay, wow, he is a lot bigger than I ever knew.
Okay. So that's how you reconcile. It's not saying that you're not the it's not that you're not important to him, or that this atrocity and what you witnessed is not important. It's just bigger than that. Is that what you're
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
y-
know how you see what you've seen and been through what you've been through, and still it's
and that honestly to me is and listen to the listener, if you don't know me in this season, the thing I want to say so clearly is this is not some like person coming on here being like, and that's why you know God is good. Like, no, not at all. I'm actually now in a space where I'm doing the opposite, where I'm just saying this is what is authentic to me is too woo woo for some people and too Christian for others. And I don't have to feel like a contradiction. I
yeah.
can just literally say, this is what settles with me. This is
Mhm.
what I feel in my spirit to be true. This is what I don't. And some of it is Christianese, and then some of it is, alms and Sean. Like there's just it's become bigger to me. His
Mhm.
existence has become
Mhm.
more obvious to me, and I've also given up this black and white having to know, because
Mhm.
the mystery
Mhm.
is the fun part. And I think this is really getting in the weeds, but it's something I've been thinking about today. I honestly think that when people view God in a narrow way, they start to get really bored.
Mm.
Like, it's just boring. It's just a boring existence. And so that's where you find it's cult-like behaviors or things that, like, start to feel really weird. Uh,
Because the community then kinda trumps God, maybe.
ye
Like, the
lit
you know
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it's I
Mhm.
feel like it's one of these things that it's like there's this space of needing it to be systematic and needing to be right and fear. And so much of my earlier life, that's what faith meant. And I knew that God was important to me. And I wanted to believe that I was important to God and that you were important to God. The language, I tried out so many different ways, so many different sweaters. I tried on so many different sweaters, and then I realized over time, like, no, God handmade you your sweater. You can just
Yeah.
put the sweater on.
Or
Like,
just run around naked.
yeah, exactly. Like, or like, but it doesn't have to be boxed in. And I think the boxes just make people more comfortable. But when you've done what I've done, when you've watched what
Yeah.
I've watched, that
They
is
don't make boxes for that.
no,
Like,
that's
yeah, yeah.
reality.
Right.
That happened. I
Mm,
saw that. I experienced it. And again, I think there are a lot of people that would want me to say or want to comfort themselves and say that I must be mad at God. No, I'm not mad at God at all.
mhm,
I just I think he's a mysterious I think he's mysterious, and I think I was afraid to let him be mysterious until I watched my kids die,
mm.
and then I had no choice. It was either, I mean, I think about this all the time, like, a lot of people who lose kids, you look at research, like, things are really not good after. I mean, like, their mental health, physical health, life, the suicide rates, like, all of it is just very extreme, and I wanna, it's why I've started speaking the way I have about the things that have been healing for me because I just don't have time anymore to say the answer that people want to hear
Mhm,
about
mhm.
my journey, especially in honor of my girls,
Right.
especially in honor of my girls, you know?
Hey, this is Kelly. I'm just interjecting in the middle of the conversation. But before we move on, I want to pause here. This moment where Morgan's understanding of God fundamentally shifted while her daughter was dying. It's a hinge point of her entire story. And when we were recording, I found myself almost holding my breath, not wanting to interrupt something so sacred. But afterward, I realized we really needed to go deeper. So I reached out to Morgan for some follow-up questions to help us really understand what changed in that moment and to get a deeper context and what her faith actually looks like now. So here's that conversation. Hey, Morgan. Thanks for being here to follow up with a few things that I was questioning once I went back to edit the episode. I'm trying to help listeners understand not just that your faith shifted, but like what actually changed and what does it look like now. You said you felt God say, "My hold is on you, your hold isn't on me." And what does that distinction really mean to you? How did it change the power dynamic between you and God?
I think what shifted in this aspect of almost like the power dynamic with me and God is that when I say I'd been taught, either I'd been taught or I'd told myself. And so I don't like to put responsibility on other people because the responsibility to use my own brain and spirit is real. And so I'll just say I had told myself that the initial relationship with God that I had was Him, right? Like He created me. And then the theology I'd believed would say that it was still all Him, but then everything else suggested that it was on me to uphold that relationship and that there was a risk of losing that relationship, that it was conditional in some way, even though words would say it was unconditional. It felt like the tension between what was said and what was going on around me was very different. And so after that night where I just really felt the reality of my thoughts with God on uh, who He was and what He was allowing. And kind of, it felt like all the theology I'd known was a big soup in my head. And it felt too messy, and the thought of trying to pick out individual pieces or parts or ingredients of that soup felt exhausting, and I felt God release me from having to do that. I felt like that day signified for me that I no longer had to pick out the ingredients on my own or strive to uh, analyze them in ways that felt exhausting, that I could just enjoy the soup for what it was. Which is a funny analogy that just came to me, but it really was true. I think that the thing that I had been wrestling so much with was this idea that I knew that I believed in my spirit, in the core of who I was. I knew that I believed that grace was real and that grace was grace, that grace was what the definition of grace is. And I knew that I believed that God loved and cherished and valued humanity. And for me, the part of Christianity that still resonates, I think I said this and I'll say it again, is God coming down as human, is God being Jesus, like God saying, I am God and man. I want you. Your humanity is beautiful to me. I created you in your humanity. That's what I did. And so I had a really hard time with knowing that, and then knowing the doctrine that I'd been taught.
That soup analogy is powerful. I totally know what you mean by that. It just feels like a soup that you're supposed to untangle, and it just gets overwhelming. Um, but also, you mentioned people who keep God in a box, quote, get bored, earlier in our other interview. Well, what's the opposite of bored for you? What does it feel like to let God be mysterious instead of certain?
A simple thought on God as mystery, to be honest, for me, is just in relationships. I think that something that keeps all of our relationships exciting is to know that there's always more to know, that there is always more to explore, that there's always more to learn and see, and a different way to view the person in front of you. And I think that if that's true of human relationship, I just feel like it should be that much more true for relationship with a divine being, the creator of everything. And I think that God is just a lot bigger than some of the circles that I've been a part of allow him to be. And I think that he's made smaller out of fear. And I think that when you allow him to be mysterious, and when you allow yourself to really accept the reality that there is absolute truth. I believe that there is absolute truth, and that God is absolute truth. But that as humans, we are meant to see it all as a mystery, and that the mystery is what makes it exciting. That if we knew it all, if we knew every detail, if we understood every detail, it wouldn't make life as exciting. That the mystery is what makes it exciting and lets us flow into kind of the trust and the process of life, which really the process is what we're after sometimes, I think, at the end of the day.
I agree. I think the mystery is what makes life rich. To me, the only comfort I find in the mystery is that everything's always working out for me. And if I lean into that flow, it just continues to be true. So that's where faith comes in for me, because having faith in the uncertain is sort of almost paradoxical. Um, but last follow up question for you. If someone from your old church asked you point blank, do you still believe that the Bible is true? What would you say?
And my short answer, for if someone asked me, do you still believe Jesus is Lord, that the Bible is true? Here's what I would say. This is like, you're going to laugh. This sounds like such a ridiculous plug in the midst of a sacred question. I would say read what I write. Read my Substack. Read what I write. And I only say that not to skirt around the question. I'm comfortable with that. I just wrote an article about that on my Substack called Where is God in This? And I think that those questions just can't be as simple as they look. the Bible is true, it absolutely depends on the interpretation of the Bible that someone has. Um, do I believe that Jesus is Lord? Yeah, I think I do. Yes, I do. I believe that Jesus is who he said he is. And so I do believe that. The only hesitation I have in saying that is because it kind of depends on the way that someone is asking it or what they mean when they ask that. Unfortunately, some people who say that have gotten a really bad rep and give Jesus a really bad rep too. So guilty by association is not what I want to be. But as far as believing that Jesus is who he said he was, I do believe that. I think some of the point blank questions are just a lot more layered and a lot more complex and require a lot more explanation than simple sentences at times.
Thanks, Morgan, for letting us dig a little deeper there. And I apologize for not thinking on my feet with those questions in the moment. But okay, listeners, let's get back to the original conversation. Here we go. Well, talking about obviously all this that you've been through, it was spurred the writing. You wrote a book in the midst of your caregiving, right? And
Yes.
and that you've also written a devotional journal. Do you still identify with? I haven't read them, but is that still something that it still weaves in your new perspective? Is it
Kind
still
of,
there? Kind
kind
of.
of.
I mean, that's
It
okay. I feel like
no,
it's
there
not a bad thing. That
it's so funny,
isn't that
like
interesting though. Like having the
yeah,
byproduct of.
this is what's hard for me,
Mhm.
and I mean this so wholeheartedly. Are on Milk and Honey and then Are You There Yet? The first 2 books I wrote, I self-published those,
Mhm.
and my girls were alive, and I mean this so genuinely. For someone who is still comfortable in that box, for someone who doesn't feel the things that I am saying right now, for somebody who
Yeah.
just is comfortable in that Christian cultural box, I think those books are very, very impactful. And so I am proud of them and grateful for them, and again, it was authentically written at the time. Um, because I've lived so much more life and because I've allowed myself to grow
Maybe
me,
that
not
those books are in a box, and then you're just outside of that box now. So
right.
that you can do a both and with that. You know
Ye
what I mean? Yeah.
yes, and I dabble, like, even in darkness, there are parts of Even in Darkness that I would still resonate with for
Mhm.
sure. Um, I the book I'm writing right now, it's called Faith is Doubt, and, it's
Ooh,
gonna
I
be a
love
while,
that.
so,
Okay. But that's a
but
fabulous title. I hope it sticks and that you keep that one.
I
That's
hope
great.
so too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's gonna be okay, but, I obviously, because it's the season I'm in right now,
Mhm.
it all resonates with me a lot.
Right.
But, who knows? I may be talking to you 5 years from now and feel the same way about Faith is Out.
But
You know,
how
you
awesome that you're not worried that the fact that you have evolved has not stymied your writing because you're like, "Oh, look what's happened. I don't want to create something and then not identify with it later." Instead,
Mm.
it's almost even more so like, "No, I've got to get this out. This is the message that I need to tell right now."
and I think a lot I spend way too much time, truly probably, thinking about what do I have to offer the world in this season? What is
Mhm.
my offering to the world in this season? And I've always been that way. That's just the
Mhm.
way I'm wired. And I think that in this season, my unique offering and my unique gift is my press and fight towards authenticity and just living. Like not being afraid to just be where you're at and not being afraid to just take the messy for what it is and know that 5 minutes later the messy might not be there anymore. Or I don't know. I think that there is so much of a push on people, particularly creatives, to perform and in whatever they're doing, to package it in a
Mhm.
way that's marketable. And the irony of that is that I don't think that's what any of us want. Like the posts that we read that everyone's like, yeah, are the ones where people put the mask off,
Yeah.
throw it all off and say, all right, enough of the BS. Here's what I really want to say to you. Those
Mhm.
are the things that stick because that's what connects us. And so I really worked hard at doing that in a way that I try to figure out what lane I need to be in and speak from that lane, but also that I'm not afraid to step out when there's a moment to step out too, and know that we're all complex human beings.
Right.
We don't, there's not just one thing or one way or black and white. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be that way.
No, I think your authenticity and your watching your evolution, it's a beautiful thing as you put yourself out there, but then it's not performative. Like you really do strike the balance because performing your authenticity is a thing too. Do you know what I mean?
Uh,
Which is like um, a bit of a contradiction, but
and when I tried it, anytime I've like ever dabbled in that, because initially, initially when I quit my six-figure job and decided I was going to do all this full time, which I laugh. Side note, I like laugh with friends now because I am working harder
right,
than I have ever worked in my whole life. Financially, it doesn't look like that,
right.
but like I am working, but I love it because it's flowing with my life now because it's
Hmm.
aligning. So I work. Rob is away right now for work. He's in the military, and so I have all the time in the world to just do this, and because it doesn't feel like work,
Hmm.
I'm just writing all. It's harder to turn my brain off. But I have laughed because in this season, one of the things, this is so random, but Matthew McConaughey has this podcast that he talked on, and he says the phrase "finish and find out." And he's talking
Okay.
about just not halfway doing things, like finish
Yeah.
and find out, like really pour yourself in. And so anytime I've ever took that to mean like try harder or like get in the right box or,
Hmm.
you know, it's always like like it never works out for me. And
Yeah.
so now I'm like, I don't even do it. I'm just going to do like, I'm going to put the things out there. And I know like I can feel it in my body when I try to put workout that is just to put workout
To check the box that like I need a
that I
post today. I need to
or
show
that,
my
like, I
face
think
on
people
Instagram.
wanna hear, or
Yeah.
it's, like, aesthetically looks like what they want. It's like, no, that is not maybe that's what maybe people want that from some people. Maybe that's what some people offer. That's not me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't that's not what people want from me.
Uh-huh. Well, how are you feeling today, Morgan? And the answer to that question is literally what you're really good at.
Right. I
Which
mean, that's
but you've
literally and
been
it's
that
so
way since I've ever met you, and that's the awesome thing. Talking about that's a thread that's carried on. I
well,
love
it's
that.
so funny because I bet you're the same way. When I look back, I do see, like, childhood on, I do see myself
Yeah.
at times. I don't it's not like this person that I know now would have been, like, unrecognizable to my six-year-old self. I think that I found her voice a lot more probably.
Yeah. And to talk that groundedness that you're talking about that you can just show up and be to me is the difference from when you're asking for me that the difference between like college Kelly and now
Mm.
Kelly that it's I don't have that need to be for everybody to know who I am. I can just be. I don't know if that makes sense.
The other day, I was reading an article. I wish I could give somebody credit. I don't remember who wrote it, but I was reading an article the other day that talks about like the philosophy behind 40 being when you actually begin your life.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, I mean, even like it kind of gives me chills just thinking about you and I like sitting here having this conversation. This is a very grounded, confident, this is nice,
Yeah.
like this feels good,
But the girls giggling in the Zeta house were fun too in a different way. But yeah, they don't know they didn't know what's up.
I don't think I quite realized at the time, for me,
Mhm.
how it was very obvious to others probably. I don't think I realized how insecure I was then. I don't think I quite grasped that the person that I was, and a lot of that was because the person that I was not the person that needed to perform in the places that I had myself. And so that was really, really the hardest part for me to overcome.
Okay, I think I know what you mean. That you the places that you had yourself. Say, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think that growing up in an environment where most of the people around you were the same and felt like themselves in the environment they were in.
Mhm.
And so that was a part of the healing for me too. Everybody wasn't faking it.
Mhm.
I was faking it.
Mm.
Not even faking it. I was just trying to make it work because I thought I had to, because that seemed like the way to get, I don't know what, the
Mhm.
approval of the people around me, safety and security in life. I don't know. But so I would see other people, and it all felt so, it almost felt like a movie sometimes. Like I'd go to cotillion parties or,
Mm.
certain environments that just, I felt like I thought everyone was performing. I was like, well,
Oh, okay.
we're all just performing here. And I was like, no, I don't think these people are performing.
No,
I
there
think
this
this
is
is who they are. I think this is I think this is who they are. And so for me, admitting that to myself and then doing the work of saying like, like almost like separating myself as an individual from the enmeshing
Okay.
myself with the collective, of saying
Uh-huh.
like, no, this is true for you.
Yeah.
It may not be true for them, and it's not yours to decide or figure
Right.
out. Who
Right.
cares? For you, though, it is important to figure out, and nobody's going to do that for you. Like, you have to do that. And a lot of that work didn't happen until after my separation.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to be an adult. I lived under my dad and
Mm.
then lived under my ex husband for 12 years. I literally, I didn't know how to adult. I didn't know
Right.
how to, I knew how to
Right.
take care of kids. I could
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how to mow the lawn. I didn't
Mhm.
know how to make sure that my car tag was up to date.
Mhm.
I didn't know that the water, when you lived somewhere that you rented, that you actually had to put that in your name. And
That's a
so,
lot all at once, the adulting stuff
so
to
maybe like the water at my
Yeah.
townhouse
Yeah.
went off once and I thought
Uh-huh.
something was wrong with the
You're, like, calling a
plumbing.
plumber, and they're like,
And the
"Ma'am, there's
plumber
just no
came.
water flowing." Yeah.
Even weirder, plumber came and fixed the meter and was like, "That's weird. I don't know what happened." And then it happened a second time, a month
Oh.
later, and he said to call the water company. I called him, and for 6 months, and had water in my name. And so, it, those kinds of things were so humbling. But it in the beginning, I would shame myself, and then I thought, you just didn't know.
You didn't know.
You're not
Yeah.
an idiot. You didn't know.
Oh my gosh. So what are some of the things that you do now to keep you grounded? And also, this is a two-pronged question. We'll talk about the actual things in a second. But when we talk about this, find out who you are, and I've talked about it in a previous episode, like when you sit quietly and it's just you and your thoughts inside of you, that feeling to me is the basis of who I
Mm,
am, that feeling. And then from there you can start to figure out these other things, and for me they don't really involve attributes like mother or wife, or
mm,
those are just how I live my life. But when you're talking about authenticity and who you are in your transformation, what are the words you use to describe that? Like, because it feels so abstract to somebody who
mhm.
doesn't speak this language. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think because so much of what I'm doing right now, so right now, um, and this honestly, this isn't a plug because I literally won't be taking on clients for months and months from now. But I am in process of getting like ICF certified. So that
Mhm.
basically, the only thing that means, and if you know anything about coaching, the only thing that means is that I'm not just some influencer on the internet who's acting like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the process of becoming a trauma informed women's embodiment coach. And the school that I'm in basically focuses a lot on somatic work and the body, and including the body in your healing. It focuses on hormone health and the impact that our hormones, particularly as women, and our
Mhm.
cycle have on us. It talks about masculine and feminine energies and how that plays a huge role in just aliveness in our lives and our healthiness. And then it also kind of dabbles in some more nervous system trauma kind of language and behaviors. So that being said, um, somatic work is just so on my mind right now because it's what I'm studying, it's what I'm
Yeah.
doing, and it's been a lot of my healing. So for me, I think about how I feel in my body when
Mhm.
I am alone. So it's funny that you said that. Like when I am sitting alone, if I am living in alignment and in an authentic space, my chest feels free. I feel
Mhm.
like I can take a deep breath. My shoulders don't feel tense. I feel like my heart is in a warm, comfortable space. I don't feel the need to be restless. I don't feel the need to let my mind wander. I feel like I am just existing. And so for me, it's been equally important to know how to do that alone and then to make sure that the people whose energy I'm allowing into my life give me that same response. And so
Mm.
I, I had to have a partner in order to heal. I had to have a partner whose nervous system, not at all times because he's allowed to have
Mhm.
his own stuff,
Mhm.
but who, when it mattered, his nervous system helped co-regulate mine. There wasn't going to be a way for me to
Mhm.
move forward in my healing without it. And I say that to say, for me, friendships have shifted a lot because now the biggest qualifying factor for me in a friendship is how do I feel when we leave one another? How do I feel? We can interact and engage and be cordial to everyone.
Yeah.
We can love and be kind. We don't have to be friends with everyone.
Mhm.
And having people in my life who I feel like when I leave them, I can feel that same way has been really important. So I think a lot of it, I agree with everything you said. And for me, it's how does my body feel in my relationships and in myself when I'm alone? How am I engaging the world in a way that aligns with all the layers and complexities of who I am? Is there a layer of complexity that what I'm doing with my day and my time and my energy, is there a layer that that aligns with?
Okay. Cool. So, like, if that's also how the litmus test for figuring out, is this something that aligns with me? Like
Right.
the nervous system reaction to it. Does that feeling that I want to have exist? And it's nuanced, right? Because we're gonna have stress. We're gonna have, and that if you're a little stressed about something, that doesn't mean, sometimes a little bit of fear means it could be for you because you need to push past it and kind of
Absolutely.
go for it. But then other times, a little bit of fear, that little means no, 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 that's not for you. And sometimes there's a hard distinction. I don't even know. Sometimes I'm like, have to pause and really
Well, in
think
nervous
like
system
that.
regulation, this was huge for me when I realized like being a regulated person doesn't mean that you don't experience dysregulation.
Mhm.
It's your reactionary time to it. It's how quickly
Mhm.
can I recover from this thing? Like, how much does this affect me on the back end? If I have somebody in front of me who dysregulates me, if I have to engage somebody, I co parent. If I have to engage
Mhm.
somebody who is dysregulating for me, can I stay regulated on the back end? What do I do? What tools can I use? It's more about your toolbox to me
Mhm.
and believing in the toolbox. That's the thing I think so many people are so afraid of healing modalities that they don't understand. And
Yeah.
I think the interesting part is, that's our brain, that our brains are wired to think that way about something that's different. Our brains are wired to think about our limbic system loves to take over when something is new and say bad, unsafe.
Mhm.
That's the first response of our body. And so recognizing, I have control over that. I can speak to that. I can say, no, just because blackberries one time in a cobbler gave you food poisoning
Mhm.
doesn't mean you don't like blackberries. Let's
Yeah.
try them again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can retrain my brain to eat blackberries. And the, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time that I eat them, I might find that I like them, but I definitely won't associate them with unsafety. And that's the same way with healing modalities. I think that, even with yoga's like, for me, it's like, that didn't even tap the surface of some of the crazy things that I've done or thought to do, like all the things I know about. But for some people, yoga's a really scary
Yeah.
space. And it's just because it's unfamiliar. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's just because it's unfamiliar. Their bodies and their brains have not processed it. But if they could introduce it to themselves in a different way, if they could introduce it to themselves in a way that said, no, this isn't scary. This is just new.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
nothing to fear here.
Yeah.
They may hate it still, or they may love it.
Right, but then that's the difference that you can teach yourself. Okay, just because it's new doesn't mean it's bad, and then but give
Right.
it a shot, and then you can make a judgment call. And maybe
Absolutely.
it's not good for you on Tuesdays, but you really like it on Wednesday. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
nuances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite ways of like when you talk about somatic practices? Are you moving your body? Are you shaking? Are you what are your favorite things to if people can kind of look into it?
I like that question.
Yeah.
You can see I'm like a little kid smirking over
Good.
here. So, uh, it comes with a little backstory. So,
Yeah.
um, right after the girls died, really, but mainly getting closer to my separation and my divorce, I had not really been that active. We were in survival mode. I mean,
Yeah.
I took my girls on walks, but I had not done anything in the realm of like true fitness, even though it was something I was passionate about. I hadn't, and so I joined Orange Theory. It was what I knew. A friend introduced me to it,
Yeah.
and started going to Orange Theory a couple days a week. And right around the time Allie died, really felt my body just saying, "You have to move. Like you have to move with trauma." Some of that when I look back on it, was actually the limbic system talking.
Mm.
It was that adrenaline rush. You need to keep moving like this. You need to stay in a fight or flight state. And my therapist has been the therapist I had at the time. She's been right about so many things
Mm.
that I never gave her credit for. But one of the things she wanted me to stop doing more intense
'Cause of
kind of
the
fitness
the
stuff.
stress, the
It
cortisol
was
and
keeping me right there.
yeah.
But what I will say is I was not ready to process any of that.
Yeah.
I needed to know what it felt like to unthaw a little bit from the disassociation and numbness
Mm.
in order to even dabble into thinking about going into,
So was that
you
part
know,
of it, the intensity and the pain felt good?
it felt so good.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation that I could have about pain and trauma and could get all into kinds of things
Mhm.
with that. But I will say it was the pain, it was the endurance, and some of it was I wanted to believe I was strong. I had to feel like I had strength in me somewhere. And so I love those days. I miss those days sometimes, but I was training like an Olympian. Like
Mm.
I literally was training. I was doing competitions like almost on the like pro level of some of these hybrid things. And I could have, if I kept training that way, I could have done
Yeah.
it. But really I was still sort of in the survival. And again, talking about the thing about speaking while you're in process is that the way I spoke about the things I was doing, I told everyone about it. I told
Mm.
them I thought they should do it. And so now, um, I,
This
I don't
endurance
think
training and obstacle course run stuff that you were doing, like that
yeah,
yeah.
and it's not that I don't think that there's a place or purpose, but I don't think everyone who is trying to process their trauma
Mm.
needs to join hybrid racing. Like
Mhm.
that was just where I was at in my journey, and there were parts of that that were very helpful to I think move and liven up some parts of me.
Mhm.
But I think I really knew that I was ready to genuinely start some of the harder stuff, which that's the irony. It's like
Right.
stopping
Stopping
30
the
mile
hard
races,
work in the gym to do the hard stuff.
right?
Yeah.
Stopping. So, I still run, I still lift a couple days a week. I do love lifting heavy things. I think resistance training is really important. But when it comes to somatic work, I don't include that in on what has been healing for me, not because it's been harmful, but because I don't really think that that's been where my nervous system has experienced calm.
Okay.
Um, Grounding has been really huge for me. S- go to my backyard, put my feet in the grass, and look at the moon often. There's a lot of research, and I'm sure I feel like that's probably something you've looked into. There's a lot of research about the way the body responds to having your feet on the earth
It's
and
incredible. Yeah, how
how
simple. It doesn't
it's
require a
so
membership.
well and exactly. And the thing is, I look again, it's so beautiful when I look back on. I have so much gratitude towards my body because
Mhm.
I was neglecting my body for so long, and my body was fighting to love me the whole time. Um, I remember being at the apartment, and my ex had my son, and so I was just at the house one night, and it was full moon. nobody had told me this. I hadn't been researching it
Yeah.
yet. I just took my socks off and went in the yard and stood out there and laughed and danced and did exactly what I think we were created to do, some of us at least. And it felt so natural and organic, but it wasn't because I read it somewhere. It's because my
Yeah.
body just knew.
Yeah.
And so grounding's been huge for me. Forest bathing is huge for me. I think spending, 15 to 20 minutes a few times a week looking at the trees, standing under the trees, being with the breeze, experiencing that life, that's been huge for me. Yoga has been really big, and a lot of it is the breath movement
Mm.
combination. I do think that that's why trail running
Yeah.
was healing for me because of that left, right.
Okay.
Those motions are very similar to some of the things that kind of help our nervous system.
And you're in nature. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so being outside and being grounded and then also doing breath work and yoga, those things have been probably the biggest. I'm starting acupuncture next
Oh.
week. And so I've heard incredible things about getting with the right practitioner with
Mhm.
that. And so I'm interested in how my body responds. So that's one of, but I am now open. I've tried so many things, brain spotting, EMDR, like I've done a lot of different modalities and I'm up for them. I'm up for them all.
Mm.
I mean, I took mushrooms, um, not in a therapeutic setting, and I think
Oh,
that maybe
okay.
was part of the problem.
Oh.
But I took mushrooms once, and the wild part, I researched it for days because I felt nothing.
Oh.
I felt
Wow.
I felt nothing. And there's a lot of research that says that people who've been through significant trauma have to take higher doses.
Mm.
So it was really disappointing because I'd really thought through,
Yeah, you
am
didn't
I
just
going to do this?
willy-nilly. Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Am I not? And then I did it. And it was like,
Well,
well, I guess I did it. I forget that I did because it just,
yeah, it didn't.
but I only say that to say I'm so comfortable and open to so many different things because I think what has happened is that, again, when things aren't safe or comfortable, people forget to like, even consider them or take them seriously.
Yeah.
And the things that are least taken seriously have been the most impactful in my healing journey.
Right, like hugging not that you're literally hugging a tree, but so what? What if you did? Like when you're talking
Oh,
about forest bathing, go hug a
I'm
tree.
interviewing a girl. Yes, I'm interviewing a girl tomorrow I think that's been a big part of her thing.
Okay.
And it's like, and I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. Like,
No.
if that is for me, and again,
That
I
is a
will.
big phrase in our house, by the way, I love it.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I won't. I don't know how deep you get in this podcast, so I won't go into it too much. But I will also say, healthy intimacy has been
Yeah, that's good. I
uh,
don't have any parameters.
okay.
We talk
Okay.
about whatever.
Well, it's been massive for
Yeah.
me. Learning my own body and what feels good in my body because pain was such a big part of it's
Mhm.
better to feel pain. It's better to suffer.
Well, it's what
It's
you
more,
knew.
it's all I knew.
Mhm,
And so being able to disagree with that and say, no, that's not true. I want my own pleasure.
mhm,
And to be with a person who wants my own pleasure. Like
mhm.
he wants that. He wants to make me feel good. And I mean, there's been moments where I literally I quite literally feel like trauma is being what out of me. Like it's not it is. And so I think that, and it's funny too, because again, the misconceptions, like when I started being more open about talking about sex, I've always been a really sexual person, like always.
Mhm.
I just wasn't comfortable talking about
Talk
sex
about
and
it.
thought it was bad,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's been who I am. And
yeah.
so when I started actually, being more comfortable in my own skin and talking about it, I think people were picturing me like, which part of this would have been true for a season, but, like, I think people were picturing me, like, all over the place, like, whatever,
Yeah.
and then but when really I'm just, like, crying in the arms of a
Oh,
safe, healthy man
yeah.
just being loved, and I'm like, like,
It's
it's
not
the
what everybody think and then
not
but
always.
guess what? You don't need to worry about it, and that's where you're at. That's so
Exactly.
freeing.
Well, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's the thing, again, with context, like, when you're on somebody's podcast, you need to ask, like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
hey,
but I
can I
mean,
say
but in
this? You
general,
know?
like, whoever like, even if it was just you and I having lunch together, you might have before been like, "I don't know, is this something we talk about?" But now you're
Right.
like, "This is what," like, "This has been really helpful," and I'd be, and you're not even worried about it.
Because
Yeah.
it's me.
Yeah, I think it's
And if
so
it makes
awesome.
you uncomfortable, this is why if something I do or say makes somebody uncomfortable, that's on them, not
It's
on
a
me.
yeah, that trigger they need to kind of figure out, "Okay, interesting."
If I have that same response, it's the same. It's like, why did that produce that in me?
Yeah, and it's interesting, we in our house have used that language a lot more lately too, like, I don't know how it came up or what's evolved, but, if I get upset about something somebody says, and if there's apologies still, and people still take responsibility, but I'm hoping we're modeling to our kids that nobody can make you feel anything. That
Right.
doesn't mean people should be unkind, but it means that, like, you're giving them permission to say, "Oh, that made me mad." Okay, well, you're being mad. Maybe you don't have to be mad at the XYZ thing that happened. Like, it's still your choice.
Right.
And I don't think people are taught that, like, out the box, out the womb, you know? It's something that's a little foreign to some.
I think, again, I think there's so much more insecurity within ourselves that we don't deal with. That if we did, because if we were all just showing up this way, like this conversation, think about if every interaction we had with any human was just open to listen
Yeah.
and, hey, I want to hear what you have to say. And yeah, say what, just tell me your experience, tell your life. If we could show up in that way, it'd be a lot less
And if
complicated.
there was, like, a twinge of, like, "Huh, I don't understand," or, even if there was something uncomfortable, it was tell me more, not like a reaction. I mean, like,
Right.
giving people the benefit of the doubt is such an easy way to just live that way and assume most people's hearts are not out to get you, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I don't think they are. I think I've thought about this a lot lately. I think everyone who's hell-bent on being right usually has good intentions.
Right.
Like, I think that they do. I just think that they don't know the freedom of not having to worry about
Of the
whether they're right or
of
not.
the gray.
Like,
Yeah, right.
right? Like, that's where I like to live.
Yeah, me
I
too.
when people ask me, because people really wanna know, like, in the Christian community in particular, people
Mm,
really wanna know, "What do you believe about this?"
mm.
And it's really hard for them to hear, "I don't know. I
And
don't know."
sometimes what feels good yesterday might not always feel good tomorrow. I don't know. So I'm kind of the same way. I actually had somebody ask me, um, reach out about a past podcast and this girl's philosophy. Her name's Courtney, and it's really interesting. She follows Neville Goddard's work. He's a philosopher that talks about how maybe the universe in the world is just us pushed out. So
Mm.
like it's everything that I'm seeing. I'm creating you, but yet you're also creating me. And we're having our own unique experiences, but just simultaneously. It's
Oh,
really
that's
hard to like
cool.
wrap your head around. But she was saying, isn't it kind of, do you believe what she's saying? Isn't that kind of a lonely existence if you're not co creating? And I'm like, isn't that interesting? I don't know if I believe it. Now, this conversation with this text message, she was like, she's open to the I don't know.
Right,
But I thought it was an interesting choice of words. Do you believe that? Because a big part of this podcast is I am not telling anybody what to believe. It is like,
right,
let's try it on. Let's come up with ideas. Let's just see how it feels. I mean, like philosophy was one of my favorite classes in college. It's just about the brain exercise, like of just let's see. But belief is such a heavy word that I don't think a lot of people realize you can explore ideas without having to believe in them. Like,
well, if you really think about it, think about life. My dad and I used to always talk about this growing up. We just are all here. We're literally just here. And there are colors and there are people and animals and things, and we all leave at some point and we
hmm
don't know when we're leaving. A lot of us, most of us leave well differently and before we thought that we would. And we all know this. We like
It's kind
we
of wild,
all
isn't it?
we all know this,
This
and there's not
concept is,
like
yeah.
sheer panic
Yeah.
constantly because we've just had to accept it. And then we get to believe all the things that we want about what that means about realms and afterlife
Mhm.
and all those things. I've been researching. I bet you know so much. I'd love to have this conversation with you, but I've been researching people who have had like near death
Oh, you sent me
experiences
that one. Yeah.
or, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So clearly I've been researching enough
No,
to
and
send people
I've only
things.
listened to half of it, but yes, I'm all into the
It,
idea.
so in my mind, I'm
Mm,
like, it's so, especially someone who's buried kids, because
mm,
I will say, and this is, I wanted some really cool moment with my girls where I was like, there is an
yeah,
afterlife,
yeah,
uh, and basically got one with Bailey Grace. She died first, and a couple days before she died, we took her to the porch. We thought she was literally about to die. And the hospice nurse had said, it's time. Where do y'all want to be? We want to be on the porch.
mhm,
So I'm holding her, and suddenly she opens her eyes and sits up and looks around and smiles. She hadn't done any of that in days. She really couldn't sit up, period, but she definitely hadn't sat up since she was actively dying. And she's looking around, and it's very obvious to the hospice nurse, myself, and my ex, like she's seen something and it's
mhm,
good.
mhm,
And I thought she was gonna die right then. Like, I was like, "This is it. This is
mhm.
the moment." And then she looks over, starts crying, and lays back down, and for the next 24 hours, had this, like, horrific,
Ugh,
tormenting 24 hours. And I look back on that a lot because something spiritual was going on then.
mhm,
Something.
mhm.
Um, at the time, what I would have told you versus now, I'm not sure if it's different or the same, but something was happening in a realm that I was not a part of, which lets me know that there is evil too. Like, I mean, I believe that there is evil somewhere too, because something evil was going on. I don't know what that was. I also, my life partner who I live with, boyfriend feels so silly. My life partner, he is in the Air Force, and he's been deployed 4 times, and has seen a lot of things. And he confidently tells me, like, no, there is evil. Like,
Mm,
I've looked evil in the eyes. There is evil, and so I do believe it exists. We like to watch a lot of horror movies and exorcism. Like, we watch all
mm,
the like things, which I like. I don't know why we love them, but we do. So I'm only saying that to say I think that there are realms, and is it afterlife, or is it just a continuation? And do we see one another the same way, or is it different? Or, I don't, how could we ever pretend that we know that?
right.
Which is why I get so interested when people have
Yeah,
maybe like gotten on the cusps of it. Cause I'm
yeah.
like, you don't just make that up. You
Well,
don't,
because especially when your daughter and if she's going through something in a different realm, there's part of you that wants to know she's okay.
right.
Yeah.
I went to a psychic, and I was really hoping.
I was gonna ask you if you've ever done a medium.
Yeah, I want to go again. I need to go again.
Mm,
I went to a psychic, and I remember it was right after my divorce, and it was like, I didn't tell anyone.
mm,
I didn't tell anyone I went. I was like, okay, now this is where I'm like really, like, I'm going
mm.
off the deep end hard
Well,
here,
especially for you right then, like in that
I
part of
was
your
going
life.
hard in the paint.
Yeah.
Like, and so I walked in, and I didn't want her to know anything about me because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to give this lady
Not
any
even my
leeway.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I was
Mhm.
like, and I told them at the front, I was like, I am suspicious. And the whole reason I got set up with her is I'd gotten a massage, and the person who would give me a massage at the same place, they did readings. And he was the one that said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a reading? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, you really should. She's really good. And I was like, I'm skeptical. And so she was in the hall,
Oh.
and he was like, that's her. And so I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
Let's do
it
it.
felt meant to
Sure.
be. Yeah.
So I went in there, and this is what I tell people who know this story. There is no way she, there is no way that she didn't know. She knew all the things. She knew
Okay.
so many things. She knew so many things about so many things.
Okay.
And she has now post the things she said. A couple of them pissed me off. Were right.
Mm,
They were true. Certain relationships in my life that she had said, like, no, this
okay.
isn't going to last. This isn't going to
Mm.
be.
And
They
at
were.
that
She was right.
moment, you're like, "Don't tell me that." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't.
Mm,
So she was right. She had a lot to say about Aura. She knew nothing about my girls.
mm,
And she said that she had a message from the dead for me. And she wanted me to know that she said there's more than one. I want you to know that they want you to know that the reason that they don't come around often is because they feel like it makes you sad.
Oh gosh.
And that if you want them to come around, you need to tell them.
Hmm.
And so, anyways, I left that place, went into this shop that had like, didn't have books. Like it had like, it's one of those like typical like monogrammed cups, I don't know,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
just like a
Like
little
gift
accessory
shop. Yeah.
store.
Gifts.
Yeah, gift
Yeah.
shop. But there was one book and it said, When I Think of My Mommy on the front. And I went to the back of that store and I sat down on the floor and I whispered because I was in public, I wasn't in a bookstore even.
Yeah.
And I whispered, I want you to come around. And I read that book to myself, just sitting in that little store. And now I try to say that to them pretty frequently. But again, I'll just, my, does that woman know all she knows because it's evil and she's not supposed to know? Or does that woman know all she knows because she's supposed to tell me? I don't know.
Well, no, she just knows what she knows, and you were in the right place to receive that information. And that's
Right.
the information you needed to know. Yeah.
Right. But you can't deny. I had a conversation with my sister after I told her,
Mhm.
and I knew I
That
was like,
book, that title
this.
of that book, you can't make that up. No.
Well, the thing is, if you can shift your language, this is what I said to my sister.
Mm.
You can shift your language and think, if somebody said to you, the Holy Spirit led me to X, Y, or Z, or the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit told me to tell you this, that makes people comfortable.
Well, that makes your people comfortable.
That people comfortable. If you say the psychic told me,
Yeah.
well, the psychic told me, but it's like, no, but we're saying the same thing,
Yeah.
I think. Like, I actually think
Yeah.
that we just said the same thing,
Yeah.
but just, so for me, or even like the whole manifestation stuff, like,
Yeah. I love this conversation, this
well,
label conversation. I've been about this
right.
lately. Yeah.
Well, one of them, like, one of the things I started saying to God after my separation was, show me how good it can get. Show me how good it can get.
Yeah.
It's gotten really freaking good. And was that, if I would have said I manifested that to some people, they'd be like, what do you mean you manifested it? I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
manifested it. Or if you're more comfortable with me saying I asked God to,
Yeah.
I can say that too.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you want me to say it?
Isn't that wild? Yeah, because it definitely depends on who you're talking to. Some people would be like, "Oh gosh, don't bring God into this. You created this. This is your creation," and that you like it. Just everybody has their different lens. It's
Right.
all the same thing.
Right. And I really believe that more and more. Speaking of believing things, I
Yeah,
really believe that
that's a
more and
belief I
more
do hold. Yeah, I
over
guess so.
time, because I think that I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be like, the language doesn't have to be
Because if it's that big, then language knows no bounds. Like I mean, or like language is the
right.
bound. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I hate to cut you off but we're at an hour
I
and I
know.
could talk to you all day.
I was
What
just
can you
looking at
tell us
that.
where you're headed and what you're most excited about exploring, like with Substack and your book that you're writing?
Yeah. So I'm so excited. So I'm excited about Substack because I feel like what it's done is taken a platform like Instagram
Yeah.
that feels sort of like I'm a little puppet sometimes, that's like
Mm.
trying to like,
Bow to the algorithm a little
yes,
bit. Yeah.
like I don't, it feels like no matter how not artificial, opposite, how authentic you try to be, there's a layer of artificial that is sometimes there from the other side, because you don't know if people are actually reading what you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't know if people are there because they value what you're doing or they're wanting to creep on what you're doing.
Mm.
It feels like kind of like a high school party or something sometimes. And so I have to stay there because that's where I built my following. Like, I
Mhm.
can't just be like, sometimes I want to, but I feel like I can't just be like, hey, bye. Um, right now, anyways. And so I say that to say Substack for me is a way for me to feel like there is more value to what I'm able to add. And I'm able to start, as I get through this coaching program, like start to offer some group programs for specific areas of healing that can be impactful. It just feels like a more impactful space. And it also,
Yeah.
there's layers, like paid subscribers get to participate in a community aspect of it.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to do like a monthly chat. And I've gotten to the point where it doesn't feel arrogant or embarrassing to know that people want to talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
I used to shrink myself down and be like, oh, just little me. And then now I'm like, no,
You
I
your time is
have,
valuable too. Yeah.
Yeah, I have people that, I want to be able to give the things that I've learned to and to connect with in that way and um, do it in a way that feels right. So super excited about Substack.
Okay.
As far as, I have a podcast that I am starting. I haven't revealed much of that yet because I'm still recording episodes, but that's going to be a really fun thing that I'm doing. I think mainly I'm in the middle of writing that book. I honestly think the thing that I am most excited about in all of it is that I'm doing the dang thing. Like
Yeah, you're doing
this
it.
is my job now. This is
Yeah.
my job now. I don't have a paycheck coming in
Yeah.
because I am building
Mhm.
these platforms, which that's why I told somebody the other day in my direct messages when they were asking about the paid subscription. I was like, I don't know how to say this in any other way. My writing is now my livelihood. And
Yeah.
so it's, this is what I'm doing, for a living. And because I'm doing it for a living, I- I'm, I'm spending my days doing it.
But you
And
have so
so,
much free content. That's what's always funny to me when people they're asking pay because you have free articles on Substack, and
right,
then they want access to you
right.
more than this is what it costs.
Right. And, I think it's important for people to decide this is where the pressure is taken off because my work's going to resonate with some people and not
Yeah.
with other people. And same with vice versa. So it's
Yeah.
like, if this resonates with you and want this to add value to your life, it's worth the investment. If not, you don't have to.
Mhm.
There's no pressure there. So I'm really just excited, honestly, about them all coming together.
That's so cool.
That's the main thing.
Well, I'm so proud of everything that you're building and that you've done because, I mean, you've lived quite a many lifetimes, really, when you think about all your different chapters. And you're being, you could say that you weren't as authentic when I knew you in college, but I think that was you were authentically you in that moment for that season. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then it's
Absolutely.
all about the
Right.
evolution, so it's all perfect. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thanks for
Uh,
chatting with me today, and I'm
This
going to
is
leave
so
links
fun.
to all your stuff. Thanks so much, Morgan.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you all for being here for this one. I know it was a little heavier than usual, but sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do is just tell the truth about how hard it really is. Morgan's story reminds us that authenticity isn't about perfection. It's about staying in a relationship with yourself, your body, and whatever you call God, even when everything else falls apart. If this conversation meant something to you, could you please follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to someone who's rebuilding their faith, their life, or their sense of self? This is That Spiritual Girl Next Door, where we talk about the messy, mystical middle of being human. I'll meet you here again next time.